to make a video about controversial topics, period. But television, once it was invented, at least once various shows have been invented, quality of TV shows, that's a very opinionated thing. But the TV shows that existed after, say, 2002, or some other extent, 1999. Shows that existed between 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, and all the way to 2025. There's literally a TV show or movie for everyone. Um, and the internet has created a huge amount of shows that will never get published in that way on national television. So there's literally something for everyone. For anyone who wants to perceive, there's a ton of resources for that, and one does not need to graduate college or attend college at all to acquire this perspective. That creates a very unique opportunity for perception, learning a lot of things. But the problem I'm getting across that I'm kind of confused about is why people hate texting so much. Why people are so obsessed over speech. It's just the idea of getting to know the person, what their voice is saying, the words that are said, the language that is said. Here's the thing: not everyone could, learn any language. There's a reason why, there's a reason why language acquisition typically occurs at early ages and not later. Not, and I'm like, just some people can learn languages really quickly. Just. But the thing is, I wanted to discuss the topic of because the question of why failure occurs is a complex one. That's why there's so many books written on it. But controversial things tend to there's many controversial things that have existed. Some certain things that are controversial have led some people to their careers have been jeopardized. For example, some certain things that are so controversial that certain people in the entertainment industry have lost their jobs, and certain politicians have to resign from their office, for example. Let's see. A series of questions cannot be used for research, but it is used. There's a lot of rampant fraudulence in research, but they get away with it because of various reasons, from their ability to understand political correctness to the reality that very few people outside of academia actually read these research journals. For those that read them, certainly would not question them by any chance. It certainly wouldn't have the ability to affect anything. So let's try to imagine what the reason is for these things. Part of the reasons is because Earth is a very unusual planet on its own. Before 1960, or before 1980, most books had lead. And the thing is, the type of person that reads a book is not the same as the type of person who understands the subject and doesn't need to read a book, right? I mean, of course they would read the book. They would read their required textbooks and course texts to get a decent grade, but they would never be obsessed over it, right? They would never be obsessed over it to try to understand, not necessarily the subject itself, but to understand, the variety of perspectives. And one of the reasons, let's try to figure out what the reason is. Let's see, before 1865, the vast majority of people lived in farms. Before TVs, DVDs, computers were invented. So the desire to invent something is something, see, there's tons of patents in the list of U.S. patents, but there's also patents in other countries. There's tons of inventors in other countries, right? Um, the thing is that in human society, I've observed there's a significant lack of logic, and the reason is I made a video on why religion was invented before all these before these inventions. Life was very different, right? You didn't have the convenience of all these things. So religion was invented to explain a lot of things that didn't make sense, right? And not just that. It isn't. I explained in the previous video that it is a communications network. Um, but again, it doesn't answer a bunch of other questions. For example, it doesn't explain why, um, you know, for example, a series of questions cannot be used for research, but it is used. But research, the College Board has created an advanced placement course called AP Research, but it is not the same thing, is what I'm saying. For fraudulent research to occur among professors, it's because, who's gonna read these? Who's gonna read it and actually have any effect on society, right? Certainly, professors are more likely to be fired over political incorrectness over anything else, or sexual misconduct, or and they're not likely to be fired for a series of questions that cannot be used per research, but it is used. And I'm like, the reason why that is because no one cares about these research projects, right? Um, who's gonna take time to read it? There's a huge amount of jargon. You actually have to take graduate courses in the subject to understand it, and there's a lot of different subjects. And not just that, um, you know, like there's a lot of naive people. A naive person, um, for instance, they, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a naive person on its own. It's just that there's so many of them, right? Let's see, and not just that. Perspectives. I've noticed on the internet as I browse through the internet, there is a ton of echo chambers. Certain social media websites are more prone to this than others. The echo chamber effect is basically where you have a lot of people, for example, in a subreddit, but not just a subreddit, in various groups in these internet private, for it could be a private server, it could be just there's a ton of these echo chambers where people have a bunch of users, basically have opinions that basically agree with each other, and then you never get to see the other perspectives, right? So, it is not a private server, but the new users that present other perspectives are basically kicked out of the server, right? They're just not, you know. The reason they're kicked out is because they have a perspective that the echo chamber group does not agree with. This is a very common occurrence. Um, the reason this is common um, is there's lots of reasons. This is one of the reasons why you cannot explain why failure occurs easily. That's tons of books for it. But let's try to figure out the reason is. Before the internet existed, there was a time before TVs, DVDs, computers were invented, and you could still, any honest historian could observe that there's echo chamber effects before the internet existed. I might have particular examples of this. I mean, some of them are rather obvious. There's so many cases of wars started because one religion doesn't agree with the other. It could be a bunch of other political reasons. But the echo chamber effect is very common in human history, and it's the reason why wars existed. No, it is the reason why a lot of wars have started, but it's not the reason why wars, um, you occurred. Like a declaration of war is a serious matter between one country and another. But an echo chamber effect you know, broadly speaking, for most part, has existed in many parts of human society. That includes a time where a lot of people had to, endure horrendous things that really almost never exist now. But in the modern times, but also because you know the human psyche is not wired to read books. The human psyche is also not wired for texting. Um, it is wired for things like a Morse code or like for example, a lot of people have stage fright or fear of public speaking, right? Because the human brain is wired for speech and hearing, right? It is not wired for texting or email. It is not wired for that. It is wired for snail mail because you can see a piece of paper, read it, and get writing utensil and write something on it and put a stamp on it, right? But it is not wired for email. Um, and this answers a bunch of different questions on why certain TV shows are controversial. Some TV shows will repeatedly have episodes that deal with the question like why people hate texting. They may also some TV show episodes will exclusively answer the topic of why people are not wired to read books, and that causes, and of course, a series of questions cannot be used by research, but it is used. This is a major reason why certain TV shows or movies are controversial because they address these um, topics that that affect the human brain and the neurotransmitters in a very primal way, and they may not the producers and directors might not be aware of these particular examples that I listed, but that is what their TV shows um, you know have done to the audience. Though their techniques of using it with various characters they created is not um, you know that is probably something they did not intend.